For shared reading today, we will be reading about the author, John Burroughs. If you remember, we've read one of his texts at the beginning of this unit, A Bird's Free Lunch. In this next text, we will learn more about John Burroughs' interest in nature and how he used that interest in his writings. Our focus for reading today is to identify the key details in the text to form a main idea. A little helpful hint is that a main idea is what the text is mostly or mainly about. Details are used to help support your main idea. Follow along. Being in and Seeing Nature. The Writing of John Burroughs by Vl4 Sr. Paragraph 1. Pioneering nature writer John Burroughs found his artistic voice and also a sense of delight and wonder by carefully observing the world around him. He grew up on a farm in Delaware County, New York. As a boy, one of his favorite things to do after completing his chores was to escape to a special place he later called Boyhood Rock. Burroughs liked to look out from this spot on Old Clump Mountain, a part of the Catskills, and think deeply about what he was seeing. Burroughs' habit of studying and reflecting on nature stayed with him his entire life. He became a teacher and government worker, and also gained fame writing essays for magazines. By the 1880s, Burroughs had become a full-time writer. He wrote of fishing and hiking. He wrote about the seasons. He wrote about the birds, flowers, and animals he saw outside his window. Burroughs spent most of his life near where he grew up. In summers, he preferred the view from a small cabin in the woods. He named this place Slabsides, and from it he recorded the daily lives and interactions of his animal neighbors. Burroughs is often praised for his descriptive writing. Its style of observation is more literary than scientific. He takes the reader on the same personal journey he is experiencing, narrating the events. His gentle lyrical writing gives a human dimension to non-human subjects. For example, in The Chipmunk, Burroughs observes the main character emerging from its winter's nest. Now rested, the chipmunk is ready for a glorious spring. Let's take a look at our reading to find key details in order to help me create a main idea. In the first paragraph, I noticed that we got details about his young life and his interest for nature. I underlined some phrases and sentences like he found his artistic voice by carefully observing the world around him, and he thought deeply about what he was seeing. So I combined all of those details to write my own snippet off to the side in my own words. Then looking at paragraph 2, I did bracket off that entire paragraph. I like the details that we got in there. Again, I didn't want to underline everything, or you can simply underline keywords and phrases to help you remember. But paragraph 2, this paragraph helped explain that Burroughs wrote about nature, the seasons, and what he saw in nature. On the bottom of paragraph 3, that just kind of reconfirms what was stated previously. The fact that he just recorded the daily lives and interactions of his animal neighbors. And I'm making a connection to A Bird's Free Lunch, where we saw him observing the birds interacting with one another while they were eating. Now jumping to paragraph 4, I like the fact that this explains that Burroughs wrote very descriptively, meaning that he used very great details to help readers visualize exactly what he was trying to explain. He also, in his writing, tried to allow readers to feel the same experiences. So again, using those descriptive details, he really wanted the authors to see, hear, and feel the same things that he felt while observing nature. Based off all of my details, I wrote my main idea down below. It says, John Burroughs was interested in nature from the time he was young, and this interest led him to focus on nature in his writing as an adult. Now, what we're going to do is read an example or an excerpt from John Burroughs. Before we start, I want you to take a look at paragraphs 6 through 9. Notice that some of the paragraphs are italicized or they have that slanted look, versus in paragraph 7, that's just normal, regular font. The reason for that is the italicized part is from the actual text that he wrote. So whatever's in italicized is the actual excerpt, versus paragraph 7 is again the author that's writing this text to just give us some more background knowledge. As we're reading The Chipmunk, we want to again look for those descriptive ways and styles that John Burroughs wrote. So as I'm reading The Chipmunk, I want you to get an idea of what you feel, hear, or see. Follow along as I read The Chipmunk. Paragraph 6. The first chipmunk in March is as sure a token of the spring as the first bluebird or the first robin, and it is quite as welcome. Some genial influence has found him out there in his burrow, deep under the ground, and waked him up and enticed him forth into the light of day. The red squirrel has been more or less active all winter. His track has dotted the surface of every new fallen snow throughout the season, but the chipmunk retired from view early in December. He has passed the rigorous months in his nest. He rests beside his hoard of nuts, some feet underground. When he emerges in March and is seen upon his little journeys along the fences, or perched upon a log or rock near his hole in the woods, it is another sign that spring is at hand. Burroughs' essays often have a poetic quality. In the next two passages from The Chipmunk, Burroughs uses personification when he gives human characteristics to the chipmunk. He also compares the animal's actions to those of human beings. The chipmunk becomes much like a character in a story. The chipmunk is quite a solitary creature. I have never known more than one to occupy the same den. Apparently, no two can agree to live together. What a clean, perched, dapper, nervous little fellow he is. How fast his heart beats as he stands up on the wall by the roadside. With his hands spread out upon his breast, he regards you intently. A movement of your arm, and he darts into the wall with a saucy chirrup sound. It has the effect of slamming the door behind him. Now, one thing I would like to clarify about my annotations and my underlining here is that, again, the italicized portions or paragraphs are just to give us an idea of his writing style. Now, we can still use this text to help us create that overall main idea, but I like it just to give me a sense too of how Burroughs wrote and the types of things that he observed in nature. So I am going to kind of keep my annotations just like this. And then because this is the first half of our text, we'll come back to reading more about the chipmunk and use more of that information to form our overall main idea. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this, but we're just going to talk about, his style and what we learned from his story, The Chipmunk. So in paragraph 6, again, I really like the descriptive details that he wrote. He didn't just kind of start off by saying, oh, the chipmunk, comes out because he's done with hibernating. No, I really like that he started off by, introducing the other animals that he might notice are also coming out because it's springtime. And then he goes into detail about the chipmunk, underground and how he was resting. And now he's finally coming out and he might be near the hole or by the fences because spring is around. So my annotation for that was we first meet the chipmunk as the main character. Here we get an idea that he was hibernating. Then jumping to paragraph 9, again, we get that just visualization. I even left the picture there when it says he kind of has his arms in front of his chest as he regards you intently, so that he's kind of just like, a neighbor, saying good morning to you. So that's just a picture that I got in my head. So again, I can use that information to form my main idea, and I wrote myself a little note right next to paragraph 9 that says, Burroughs writes of a chipmunk that emerges from hibernation. He explains his action and gives it almost a personality. Before we wrap up our lesson, I would like to take a quick second to just ask, what feelings and thoughts did you get as you heard the chipmunk? Again, because we know that he was very descriptive, I was really picturing a lot of things when I was listening to that text. So one thing that I wrote down is that I just pictured like the trees and the plants or flowers just blooming, because I know that that's what typically happens in the springtime. Take the next few seconds to write down at least one or two thoughts and feelings that you got as you heard and listened to the chipmunk. Today we read the first half of our text that introduced us to the writer, John Burroughs. We looked into his writing style a bit and how he connected the readers to what he observed in nature.